Emotions were running high at Waverley before yesterday's game. St Kilda found something special when Fitzroy challenged.
Half volley, brilliant, absolutely superb. Smith on the left, goes for goal. That's a gem. Wonderful.
There was high drama at Optus Oval. Carlton's one-point victory was doused in controversy.
Goalwood off the ground. That's a goal.
The umpires were in the news at Cardinia Park also. Chris Nash will be remembered for missing that final shot.
He's missed, I think. He has missed. Toronto won it. What a thriller.
But the men in white will linger in Tiger memories for this decision.
50. Free kick to Nash. Surely. No.
And tonight, the future of Fitzroy hangs in the balance. Will we finally see that much-discussed merger?
Hello again. I'm Tim Lane. Thanks for joining us on Football Feedback. Trevor Barker's death last Friday touched us all, but particularly his family, friends and colleagues at St Kilda. Saints coach Stan Alves joins us tonight to talk about his club's tough week and yesterday's gritty victory. We'll be crossing to Fitzroy's annual general meeting throughout the night with speculation of mergers on the agenda. Rob Gaylard and Andrew Marr will be bringing us the news as it breaks there. Alex Jezelenko is tonight's Hall of Fame guest. Peter Dacos will be discussing the round's goal kickers, and Rohan Connolly will be joining us again. As always though, I'm joined by Lee Matthews, and in the words of a noted cricket commentator, it's all been happening, Lee, and at last some close games with 4 under 2 goals and 7 of the 8 in the balance during the last quarter.
Absolutely. We've had some great exhibitions of football so far this season, but this weekend we had the contest and that was fantastic. I saw 4 games live and they were all in the balance at three-quarter time, which was great. And of course we had our normal controversy about the umpiring, which has become pretty normal over the last 2 or 3 weeks, Tim.
And Rohan Connolly is starting to remind me of Mickey Martin when he gets angry the way he's on about the umpires, and I believe you're coming in off the long run up again tonight, Rohan.
Again, it's become a bit of a favourite hobby horse of mine, Tim, but look, I mean, it's just reached that sort of crisis. I think something's got to be done, and I'll do it.
Now, we're going to the Fitzroy annual general meeting shortly. What's your expectation about the night ahead?
Well, I don't think we're going to hear anything dramatic in terms of mergers tonight. I think Dyson Hall-Lacey is probably going to say to the members that the club is capable of carrying on in the short term. But really, it's probably a chance for him just to test the waters with the supporters in terms of feeling out Brisbane on a merger. And I think if he can get some sort of sympathetic show from the members, it'll be full steam ahead.
Any idea why Brisbane is so much the flavour of the month now, when Hall-Lacey had said that really that would be his last option?
It's interesting, isn't it? I just feel that it would probably be an easier merger to push through than one with the Melbourne club, which would involve a fair bit of trauma for both clubs associated with it. I think Brisbane being a relatively new entity, there's probably more potential there to get it happening painlessly, really.
It's like the birds of prey picking at the carcass, really, isn't it?
And the carcass isn't giving much of a yelp on the field, Lee, is it? It's
well, no,
in real strife.
The on-field stuff for Fitzroy, I mean, the first couple of games they were competitive, and then sort of when that little bit of hope goes, as seems to have happened very early in the season, the last couple of weeks have been very poor.
Seems to have gone earlier this year than last, when at least they won a couple of games a third of the way into the year and gave some hope.
I was going to say Bernie Quillen's coaching stocks may have increased enormously.
Yeah, well, they had you on the road for
weeks.
Collingwood third of the way into the season, didn't they? And looked like inflicting a rather embarrassing defeat upon you.
Who's that? Oh, Fitzroy,
yeah.
Yes, middle of the year last year. That's correct. No, I was thinking about this time last year, Collingwood was still 0-5 or half, 4.5 with 1 draw, but yes, no, I think the Fitzroy situation on the field, I mean, it's hard to think of any optimism about where they're going on the field. Forget about the survival of the club, that's a separate issue.
I think it's interesting that early in the season, I mean, they probably should have beaten Hawthorn almost in the first game, and Mick Noonan was rightly very disappointed that they didn't. Last week they got thrashed by St Kilda and he paid out on them basically, but I noticed that yesterday, even though they were beaten by more, over 100 points, he was far less critical of the players, and it almost makes you wonder whether he's had a rethink about just how he should be treating the players. But they're in a terrible spot, and they really needed some on-field respectability to give the off-field stuff a boost, and it just hasn't happened.
Well, I don't think there'll be any major news to hand as yet. The AGM was due to get underway at the Fitzroy Town Hall roundabout now. We have a camera crew. Rob Gaylard there, Andrew Marr doing some legwork for him. So let's go to Rob and see if there's any early predictions from outside the Town Hall. Rob, good evening.
Yes, good evening, Tim. No predictions as yet. As you can probably see behind me at the moment, there's probably still about 200 people to try and get into the hall. It's jam-packed at the moment. There was about 1,200 people in there when I stuck my nose in about 15 minutes ago. It's very interesting at the moment. Any profit and loss sheets have been kept right away from the media. Unless you're a fully paid up member, that's the only way you're going to be able to get a look at things. Although I do believe, as it's common knowledge, I think virtually, Tim, and to all the panel back there, that the operating loss is about over $2.3 million. I've got a one-eyed Fitzroy supporter with me, young Craig, who strolled past, who didn't really want to get on TV. But it's just interesting, Tim, having a chat with everybody out here, what they feel is going to happen and what they want to happen. This young fellow here, he tells me he's been supporting the Lions for, what, 23 years?
Yes, that's correct.
And you're trying to fight your way in here, Craig, but what do you really want to happen from a young person's point of view? I know there's a lot of old stalwarts around the club, but what about the youngsters? What do they want to happen?
Well, a lot of my friends vote for Fitzroy, and it'll be quite disappointing to see them go down. Yeah, that's normally the feeling with all my friends. And
do you understand the fact that, you know, if you keep trading at a loss, that somewhere along the line, the same as private enterprise, the bottom line is that, you know, you are probably going to have to look at amalgamation?
Yes, I can understand that, but I don't care how much we lose money, mate.
Pride's a big thing.
Yeah, pride, I'm the Royal boy through and through.
I think the bottom line, Tim, also is that there are three men also standing. I think the public might have been a little bit misled that Greg Bastow was going to stand against Dyson Hall-Lacey. Three guys are actually standing for two positions on the board. I think you'll find that Dyson Hall-Lacey will be elected unopposed here tonight, and that Bastow will be standing, Greg will be standing against a gentleman by the name of Robert Johnson, who's from McDonald's. They're the two guys that are fighting for that other seat on the board. Andrew's in doing a little bit of legwork. I would envisage that this meeting should probably get underway within the next 15 minutes, and we'll probably come back to you throughout the night on 2 or 3 occasions with as much update as we can.
Rob, have you heard any pro-merger talk outside the hall, or is it all tending to be a bit like from your mate there? Yeah. Very, very much to try and save the Lions at all costs?
Look, the odd one or two are saying things, Tim, to the fact that, look, yeah, okay, there's a $6 million lure there. That's the bottom line. You can't keep rattling tins time in and time out. They've gone to the public and appealed so many times. And I think probably the middle bracket, you know, the 35 probably to 50 age bracket are saying things, look, that's the only option that's to us. You're getting the older age bracket that are turning around and saying, well, you know, we'll support those, because at the same time, I don't think anyone's got a bad word against their president. They've tried their heart out. But the younger guy, our young Craig here, you know, they've got a bit of pride about them around here.
How many do you reckon are there?
There was about 1,200 in there when I was in about 15 minutes ago, Tim, and there's, as you can see behind me, there's still another 200, 250, 300 locked out here. I shouldn't say locked out, but still trying to get in. Plus there's a good, strong media contingent as well, too. So I'd envisage that there's got to be about 1,800 people floating around here at the moment. They're on the streets, they're out here standing.
Righto, Rob, thanks for that. Thanks, Craig. And we'll hear from you again later on in the night, Rob.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Craig.
Thanks, Rob Gaylard at the Fitzroy Town Hall for the Lions annual general meeting, the 1995 AGM, Rohan.
Yeah, it's a little bit late in coming, isn't it? About, 15, 16 months. Yeah, the last annual general meeting was back in 1994 when they actually posted a profit. But as Rob said, I mean, the accumulated losses now have just been racking up for probably close to 15 years. I mean, really, we've had talk of Fitzroy in dire financial trouble as long ago as about 1979. So it's not a new episode, this. But look, I just wonder whether one of the problems with Fitzroy now, it's not Dyson Hall-Lacey who's the problem, but the fact that he is seen to be such a one-man band. And it means that he's carrying an awful weight upon his shoulders. And there's really no one there in a public relations sense to help the club out when Dyson isn't able to do all the work, which he can't. And there's just no one out there selling the positives of Fitzroy, or really giving the football public any sort of clear reason why they should be retained in their own right now. And I don't think you're going to see any sort of Footscray revival a la 1989. There just isn't the support there.
Well, we'll have lots more talk about Fitzroy during the course of the evening, but it's time for you to put down your bowling disc and pace out that run-up as we turn the attention to umpiring yet again.
Off I go, yeah. Well, we quoted some statistics in the paper on Sunday, and the umpires are very fond of quoting statistics too. Here's a few more of them. But I really think it sort of goes beyond statistics now. I'm talking about a general philosophical thing, I think, and I just wonder with the umpires now whether they can't see the forest for the trees. It's come down to a series of right-wrong decision-making process, and I wonder sometimes whether they really look at the games in their full context, and I wonder whether really they have a feel for the game we see today. You know, it just comes down to this right-wrong thing, decision A, B, C, D and E all the time. I think we should be taking a broader look at how the game is. We all know that the circumstances of one game are very different to the next game.
One must ask whether they've been encouraged to do that, or whether people who coach the umpires are saying, well, here's the laws of the game and here's the interpretations. You've just got to make it happen and put it into practice.
Well, I'd be worried if that is happening, because, I mean, we all know footy is such a different game. I mean, one game can be very tightly contested, scrappy, you might need to pay a lot of free kicks. The next game can be a fast-running open affair where the umpire's control only has to be minimal.
Yeah, can they do that? Don't they have to pay the free kicks they see? I mean, if they see it, they've got to pay them. That's their job, isn't it?
Well, I think in a tight, scrappy game, you might, for instance, pay a free kick for scragging, where in a more open game you wouldn't let it go. You would let it go. I think it's just sort of human nature.
Did you take that I was defending the umpires? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I just sort of that just
We'll find you later. We'll find you later, Lee. We'll find you later.
Actually, we might go into some of the contentious ones from the weekend, and we'll take the heat off the field umpires just for a moment by turning our attack on the goal umpires first up, and this is the one from Optus Oval, and what an amazing event it was. Williams probably should have taken the mark, and that would have put everybody out of their misery. There's Tony Evans arriving, and it was he who everyone agreed afterwards put it through.
Well, let me get some brownie points in here, Tim. I mean, that's one I think we probably shouldn't be talking about in the context of umpiring as a whole. I mean, goal umpiring mistakes are, you know, they happen, and everyone I think could understand that mistake being made.
Bad error though. It was a very bad error.
Yeah, well, it was a costly error, certainly, wasn't it?
And the basic principle, they like waving two flags.
Well, I was
call a goal.
I was calling the game, and from much further away from the goal umpire, and I actually said Evans has socketed through for a behind, put my head down to write it in my record, and then heard the crowd roar and looked up and saw the umpire standing like this.
Well, I guess what's made West Coast dirty on this one too is it's the second time it's happened to him in recent years against Carlton. So just talking to a few West Australians today, the conspiracy theories are abounding already.
But we'll move on, and a lot of contentious ones on Anzac Day between Essendon and Collingwood, and firstly one involving Sav Rocker, and
that's interesting, isn't it? When the umpire feels the player believes he's marked the ball and gets tackled, they will always ball it up when maybe it should be holding the ball. That's a standard thing, isn't it?
Now, whose free kick was that? I mean, having a look at it, you really wouldn't know, but umpire Harvey called it a free kick.
And he's holding the front of his. Harvey was holding the front of his top there, so I think he's obviously paid it for a holding of the jumper by Wellman against Rocker, which was hard to see when we had a good look at it.
As I saw that one, one player had his hand on the other's chest, the other player had his arm on the other player's arm. What's the difference? You know, I mean, it's just so technical. In fact, there was one shortly either before or after that which I thought was worse, in which Rocker was tackled, the ball was knocked free, and no, this is the previous one again, but a couple of very sus ones in a row which probably made it, exacerbated people's frustration, certainly did mine.
Particularly the Essendon supporters, Tim, we should point out, had a lot of frustration.
Well, I was working, well,
You had your impartial hat on.
I did, yeah.
A lot of contentious decisions in that match, and down at Cardinia Park on Saturday, a highly contentious climax to the game. Naish of Richmond and Scholl of Geelong attacking the ball, and here's what happened.
50, free kick to Naish, surely, no, he was caught high, he's paid the mark to Scholl, and they break.
No free kick. I think I'd agree with
I think
who was it, Bruce? Surely?
I think the Richmond doctor actually had to stitch Chris Naish's head back onto his shoulders after that, so how the umpire missed it, I know not. I mean, that to me is just amazing. He was looking right at it.
And on Sunday at Waverley Park, Footscray against St Kilda, and this is one that people were very interested in. Todd Curley playing now for Footscray, and he ran at Joel Smith, lovely little hip and shoulder, and he's penalised for what, would you think, Lee?
The only thing I can think of is that the umpire said the ball was more than 5 metres away.
But it wasn't, was it, Lee? I mean, the ball was within 5 metres.
Well, I don't know about that, but nevertheless, in the spirit of the things, I mean, the ball was... It wasn't a marking contest, the ball bounced in the air, and Curley really used his body to get the best position of his free kick.
My theory on it was that perhaps the umpire just had a mental blank, because the ball sat on its end and bounced so high, as you'll see, perhaps he just forgot himself and thought it was a marking contest. Is it possible that he could do that?
I think it's more likely he thought he was at Melbourne Magic versus North Melbourne Giants at the Glass House. I mean, how could you have paid that? That was amazing.
So how many points out of 10 for the weekend's effort from Rohan Connolly for the long run?
-2, you know. Look, I don't like making this a hobby horse. I think it can get quite boring, umpiring controversies, but I've never known this amount of concern at it, and I think when people like Bob Skilton, triple Brownlow medalist, the guy who's on the rules of the game panel, when he starts expressing his misgivings about it, I think it's time we all probably took note.
Rohan, we're about to say farewell to you, but just before you go for another week, is there any chance, do you think, that Fitzroy's members might tonight give the board the go-ahead to actually pursue a merger?
Well, not tonight, but look, I think there's a possibility which perhaps none of us have considered, and that is that, look, maybe the membership might not want to fight on, maybe it might not want to merge, maybe they might want to sort of get out of it now with some sort of dignity. I think that's quite a possibility we probably should be considering. Perhaps they could go and play in the revamped VFL and retain their identity as it stands now. And I wouldn't be surprised if the members found that favourable to merging. And we all know that the way the state Fitzroy's in now, it wouldn't be a merger, it'd just be a takeover, and they'd be lucky to survive with any of their identity intact at all. So I think we should consider the fact that that might be it.
Rohan, thanks for joining us again this week. Rohan Connolly from the Sunday Age, and I'll let you sneak away to a phone box, take off your TV clobber and reveal the whites that you're wearing underneath.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
With the blue and red stripe across them, of course. We'll
Not
be
likely.
back with more football feedback shortly.
Just so sad that it happened like it did. But we all love him.
I must say, as Kevin Johnson's song of the century, that wistful dirge, which some like and some don't, rang around Waverley Park on that emotional day yesterday. It did have a fairly special ring to it.